us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another dose of positivity. I'm so glad to see all of you stewards of the land, humanitarians, and lovers of life here joining us on another incredible dose of positivity here from the big island of Hawaii. And I have with me in the room today a very, very special guest who I've known for over 20 years, David Rose. And before I introduce this man and all the incredible things that he has done, I just wanted to take 1 minute and read something from one of my books to get this juicy conversation of microbiome off the road, off the charts, so we can all be feeling like all that liveness inside and get rid of any nasty microbes. That's what this conversation is about. So this actually comes from my book, Living Like the Future Matters. And I'm reading out of chapter cycle 12, and it's entitled Regeneration, which is a big part of the topic which we're talking about here today, regenerating our bodies, our soils, and culture and humanity at large. So I start with one of my quotes. Life is constantly pointing us towards one higher calling. We just have to open our eyes and begin to walk the path. Here, unquote. Every species from bacteria to humans is capable of regeneration, rebirth, and renewal. When conditions are right, the process happens faster. Regeneration is the act of improving a place or a system so it can be more productive. The context of the word regeneration also means rebirth, renewal, and to grow again. Our starfish can regenerate its whole body from just one leg. Deer can regrow antlers, lizards regrow their tails, and sharks replace lost teeth, as many as 24,000 teeth in a lifetime. Decaying trees will regenerate into nutrient-dense humus. The cells in our bodies are always regenerating. Our skin renews itself every 27 days. Humans can regenerate some organs, such as the liver. Although some human tissues cannot regenerate, we can revive our careers, our lifestyles, our relationships. We can also be restored spiritually, as well as the way we think, feel, and act. Wow, Sandra Ray is in the house. Welcome everybody to a dose of positivity. And with no further ado, I am so excited to continue on with this topic of regenerative agriculture, microbiome, and its impact on farming bodies and our ecosystems with my special guest, David Rose. So this is an incredible opportunity for all of you. Again, a reminder, this is a live show. So anybody who's on the show live or in our Facebook groups right now, please feel free to ask questions. If you want to come on live, raise your hand and we will address all your questions. I'm sure David, with all his years of experience, will be able to shine some light on all of our questions and concerns. David is a designer and a builder of regenerative community ecosystems. He's also the creator of JustOne Organic brand, which we're going to learn about today, which you guys are going to be blown away about. He's also the founder and the CEO of United Field Corporation and the steward of the collective asset sharing support system that will coordinate a global network of GDCs. Now, GDCs. So David, you're going to have to share what that is, because I looked up the acronym on your website and I thought I popped it in here, but maybe it's down lower. So David, I'm going to welcome you to the show. And something I read on your website just blows me away, that in 100 years ago, 90% of American adults were farming. 20 years ago, it was down to 2%, and many of those are already gone. There are 10 times the number of farmers over 65 than there are farmers under the age of 35, and the average farmer is now 65 years of age. And when I wrote my book 10 years ago, when I started writing it, the average age of a farmer was 58. So we're in deep doo-doo right now. So I'm bringing you this incredible human here to help us solve some of these issues that are happening out there. David, welcome to the show. And before we get into a series of questions, I would just love for you to share some light and love with everybody, where you're from, what you're doing, when this all started, and why. That's a big loaded one.
It's okay. Thank you, Donna. Thanks for having me. And anybody who joins today, thank you for taking the time. The work of regenerating our food systems, our social systems regarding sharing enough food that everybody has enough food, sequestering carbon and making our communities secure and our people healthy. It's a big work. And so I believe it started a long time ago, because it takes a lot to really make a difference and impact these things. So, you know, I've always wanted to be a part of improving things and regenerating our systems. It's been an interest of mine for a long time. And many years ago, probably 25 years ago, when my youngest daughter was still in the oven, I was given a chance to help a bunch of farmers on the island of Molokai to access a whole lot of USDA grant money. So I was happy to do that. I volunteered to do that. I felt a privilege to work with these farmers, and we did that. And they all got this money, and they used it in different ways. But I was a business consultant back then, full time. And so I told these farmers, I said, you guys, you have this money coming. I'm helping you for free. You know, use me. You know, I usually charge a lot of money to consult. So what can I do to help you turn this money into a life-changing experience at whatever level you want? And the answer I got from all dozen recipients was, thank you. You know, they appreciated that, but they said, farming sucks. So we do it because we know it, and we're not hopeful, and we're going to use the money the best we can. You know, thank you. And thanks for helping us get through this. And that hit me hard. And I mean, I wasn't asking them to pay me anything, but they were so pessimistic, and they're good people, really good people. And I just thought, and so I started asking around the rest of the state of Hawaii, other parts of the country. And the general sense is the same, that most people farm because they love it. Their parents did it. It's what they know. But their hopefulness about farming as a vocation, it's not there mostly. The exception, of course, is small-scale organic regenerative farmers. They're kings of the whole hill because they're doing it right. And now more and more communities are starting to gravitate toward their local farmers and go, these people are going to be able to feed us when the rest of it goes to heck in a handbasket. So that back then I thought, okay, if this is a general sentiment, in about a generation, we're not going to have any farmers left. Because if I was a kid and my parent was a farmer and they had that attitude, farm would be the last thing I did when I grew up. And that's what we're seeing. So you got it pretty close. You said 20 years ago, 2% of us farmed. Now less than 1% of us do. And it's disappearing fast. And because nature abhors a vacuum, what's filling in the space is giant agri-poison business. That's what's filling in the space. So if we don't take actual proactive, practical, successful steps in creating a new generation of regenerative farmers, we're not going to be eating well in a little while. So that I saw that a long time ago. So I've been working on it. And you know, I started out just going, okay, a lot of people care about this topic. A lot of smart, good people already on it. So what are they doing and how's that working? And what are they not doing that needs to be done? So the one thing that I found after years of, you know, while I'm working, I'm also interested in this. I'm talking to everybody I can think of, is that nobody has yet figured out a model to be able to buy literally tons and tons of fresh, organic, locally grown produce every single day from local farmers at a good price with contracts before they plant, or if it's an orchard, before they do that year's orchard plan. So they have time to plan, they can count on the income, and they can stabilize their vocation and grow from there, whatever their appetite is. Nobody's doing that. And I thought, okay, there are probably reasons why nobody's doing that. So what are those reasons? Well, perishability is a good reason. And the dog chasing its tail, that catch-22 thing that we all know about if we think about it, which is when I go to schools or governments or big companies or all the organizations, I think, well, that's a buyer. Those are big buyers. Why aren't they buying local? So I went to them, over the years. I said, well, why aren't you guys buying local? The answer was always in some way, well, there's not enough consistent variety or supply. We can't count on it. So we got to import. And then I go to the farmers and I'm naive back then, right? I'm trying to figure this puzzle out. And I go to the farmers and say, the schools will buy from you if you'll grow more. They say, yeah, they say that, but they don't. If they get a cheaper price from Thailand or from some other place, they'll go for it even after we're ready to harvest what they said they buy. So we're in this loop, right? So the buyers are saying, not enough. And the growers are saying, not enough. And so
yeah,
who's going to go first, right? So I thought somebody has to intervene in that circle and turn it into a spiral up by saying, we're going to buy a lot of food every day and we'll sign a contract before you plant and we'll show up and do it. So we actually did this. We proved this out probably now about 19 years ago on the Big Island, on the Hamakua Coast. I was running a company that made dried flakes out of fermented organic poi, which this is some of that food that we dried 18, 19 years ago, still in this jar, the real thing. And we used it to make a pudding that people went crazy about all over the state of Hawaii. We had a great business for a while. And I went to the farmers and I said, I have a contract. Who wants to grow organic taro for us? And the farmers were like, that sounds too good to be true. They had different kinds of skepticism, right? So there was like a dozen on the Hamakua side. So I found one that would grow. He grew 2,000 pounds for us. And he signed the contract. He said, great, I can do this. And 9 months later, he called me. He said, we're harvesting on Tuesday. Can you come? So I came. I brought the checkbook. I wrote him a check it was exactly what he promised. I paid exactly what we promised. And I telling you, all of you, I know as soon as I drove away, he went to the bank and cashed the check. How do I know that? Because that night, all the taro farmers called me, all of them. And they said, can we grow for you? So we did that a lot back then. And I know that the intervention works. The intervention works. When you guarantee you'll buy a farmer's food and you actually show up and pay for it when agreed, they will keep doing that because that's what they need. If I've asked now over 1,000 farmers all over this country and in other countries, what will it take for you to grow more food? And they always say the same thing, buy it. It's not rocket science. It was pretty simple. Anyway, so we did that. And then the challenge became how to grow that into a full spectrum food program that we can scale up all over the country and in other countries. So it's been many years of pioneering work, not just in the economic modeling and the business modeling for it, because no one's ever done it before, but also in pioneering how to use the technology that we discovered back then to apply it to all these different foods, because it is the best technology to dry food on earth, period. When you think in terms of not just nutrition, but the attractiveness of food, the flavor, the fragrance, the color, people need to be attracted to the food if they're going to eat it. I don't know a whole lot of people who love to play and interact with powders. They just don't. They scoop it into their smoothie. They read on the back, it's organic spinach powder. They call it good, right? And then there's other stuff so that they don't mind the taste and they drink it. But to interact with it, no, people don't interact with dried food. And our food, they do because it's gorgeous. So the technology, so that was the next step, right? Years later, I thought, okay, we're going to dry food with this technology. We're going to do a full spectrum food program so we can buy all these different foods from farmers and really economically drive the change. You have to drive the change economically. You can't just talk about it. There's a guy named Sadhguru who just signed up 1.5 billion people around the world in 9 months to the Save Soil movement. And he said, the guy who built that campaign wants to work for us. And he called me a month or so ago. We've talked several times and we probably worked together. And the first call, he said, you know what Sadhguru said that got me to want to talk to you? He said, a mission without an economic incentive will fail. So the why is grow a new generation of farmers, feed people well so they get healthy, sequester a lot of carbon. And with the seconds that we can dry with the capital, the symbolic capital that we liberate from being thrown away, we can use some of that to end hunger. So those are our 4 mission arcs. That's our mission. That's what we have to accomplish on a big scale. The how are these GDCs, gentle drying centers, that we're ready to set them up now in many places in the country. We've got one in Oregon that we've been doing for a few years now, improving all this out. And we're about to scale to Hawaii and Montana and a few other states. And we've got whole countries that want these now. So that's the how, because if you think of the mission, the how is the economic how. You pay the farmers, they grow the food, they sequester the carbon, you buy their seconds so that you can afford to give some food away, you end hunger locally, and you make this gorgeous food so convenient and available to people that they tend to eat better. So that's the how. And then the what, of course, are our crystals, our food. So it's a really neat package. And that's what we've been working on this whole time.
Wow, that is outstanding and so logical to a businesswoman like myself, and having seen you grow that poi business firsthand, and the value in not just the nutritional value, but we're talking about solutions for our a local regional agricultural economic development. We're talking about building jobs and security for the people working in the area, in a clean industry. We're talking about protecting, because I know in the next thing that I really would love you to talk about is the whole idea of regenerative agriculture in general. And really, it's a very old theory way back 100 years ago, before all of this industrial agricultural complex has taken over. We're really getting back to basics and getting this kind of farming, this kind of eating brings us closer to nature. And we all know the closer we get to nature, the closer we get to our true nature. And that's partly where I feel that this whole big disconnect is. But just like the word, when I was reading earlier about regeneration, it's rebirth, renewal. We are in a renaissance time right now. And I just want to thank you, David, for being so persistent all these years and inspiring other people to come on. And I know about the soil campaign. I was one of the people who signed and watched and saw the impact that it had. And I am so excited to hear that you've got them looking at you to help solve some of these global issues, because this is a global issue. And as
well, it is. And if you have 1.5 billion people in 9 months signing on to saying saving our soil is important, and then you just don't ever get back to them and tell them how we're going to do it, it doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, you have to bring it into practical, physical, and economic realities at scale, or it's not going to, or it just doesn't go anywhere. We've got so many good people working on this stuff, and it's all really important. But that one piece, the economic model with the practical product that can drive it, is you have to have that. And the other thing is it all has to be mission aligned. Like, you know, we started producing this food now with our own equipment 4 years ago. That's a long time, right? And if we would have accepted the 180 million that's been offered to us over the last 4 years, we would have grown a lot faster, but we would have been pulled off mission. So we said no to that money. And it was easy. It's like a second. It's like, oh, okay, you want us to not buy from local farmers? Nope, not going there. Oh, you want us to ditch organic because you think organic doesn't matter? No, we're not going there. So we're growing very strong and very slow and steady. And we do have momentum, and we are going to grow faster, but we'll grow correctly. And I mean, you know, to me, it's every question can be answered by the mission. Someone says, well, David Rose, what are you going to do about this, this, and this in your business? I go, well, this is what I think the mission would have us do, and that's what we're going to do. And if anybody comes up with a better idea, I'm open, as long as it helps do the mission better, right? So, for example, you know, you talked about regenerative farming. There is no difference between what's happening in the soil and what's healthy living soil and what's happening in a healthy person's gut. It's exactly the same thing. The only difference is soil has no legs and the gut has legs attached, so it can move around. That's really the only difference, because when we eat food, our bodies do not digest the food. Our gut, the microbes in our gut, the bacteria eat that food. And what they give off is nourishment for us. When plants photosynthesize, 85% of the sugars they produce from soil or from sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, they send 85% of those sugars into the soil to feed the microbiome that in turn uploads a vast array of nutrients into their roots and feeds them. So it's exactly the same thing.
Right.
Soil is gut without legs, and our guts are soil with legs. So, we have 10 times the number of microbes that we do cells in our bodies. So we've got about 10 trillion cells. We've got about 100 trillion microbes. And if I hold a handful of living soil, I've got more microbes than people on Earth in my hand. So the intelligence of that is off the chart. We don't understand more than about 10% of that with our best real science. And we don't need to, because it's been working for a long time. We need to be supportive of that. And that's why eating living food from living soil is the way to do that. And so our foods help with that too, because it's more convenient, it's shelf friendly, the nutrients are there, and the engagement is there, the beauty and the flavor and the intensity of the color, it's all there for people, so they engage with it. So all that actually works.
Yeah.
And it's taken time to figure out how to do it. I mean,
Well, yeah.
Every step, nobody knew how to do every single step. It's like the economic modeling, nobody knew how to do it, so they just didn't think about it. They hoped somebody else would deal with that. And when we finally got it and we realized, oh, we can use these dryers for more than poi, let's try drying other stuff. I found out nobody knew how to use these dryers to dry a lot of other foods. Like here, we've got broccoli. That's a really nice color for broccoli. Well, if you get freeze-dried broccoli, you're going to be looking at barely green, pale powder that tastes like broccoli flavored plastic. This tastes like broccoli and it looks gorgeous. Well, nobody else but us can dry broccoli without either cooking it first to soften it up or putting additives in it so it'll dry on these dryers, period. So it took us time to figure that out. So we just, it's simple, right? Simple, but not easy. We've been very dedicated, and we've accomplished now what no one else has done with these dryers. And with our economic modeling, we're ready to scale. We have whole countries that want us to start centers all over their countries, because they're spending hundreds of millions to train millions of farmers to change. So the momentum, we don't hear about it in most of our news outlets, but the real momentum is very cool. It's happening, and it's very exciting.
So exciting, David. My mind's going, I got so many questions to ask you. This is really exciting news that after seeing this whole thing come together like this, what I'm wondering is the farmers. Are there enough farmers? Are you contracting with farmers like you did with the taro? Do you have the growers to do this?
Nope.
Broccoli farmers?
Nope, we haven't done it yet. It's like we don't have 100 million new farmers on the planet yet. So it's going to be a process, right? So we'll work with what we have. But what we do know is that it is inspiring and incentivizing for people to farm when we are able to buy their food. So it does work. Yeah. So we know it'll work. And so, like, for instance, by the end of this year, we'll definitely be building a center on Maui for sure. We know a few places we're going to put it. We have some of the early team picked out, and we'll also be working on the Big Island as soon as we can. We've got a lot of farmers in both islands want us there. So the question is, who's going to grow the food? Well, we're going to show up as soon as the project's locked in. That's when we'll start the outreach. And about a third of the farmers we find are ready to grow for us immediately. They'll dedicate some land, they'll open up new land. They're willing to do it because they're the early adopters. So they're fun, right? We love them. The others are going to take a little while because they're skeptical, and they've earned their skepticism through hard knocks, right? So they'll take a while. Some will take a year, some will take a couple, 3 years. We don't care, because our business model is structured that we can pull food from other places while we're ramping up locally and showing transparently to the local farmers the difference, and being willing to pay more locally if we need to prioritize that. That's a reality. It's a trust building, mission driven reality. So that works. We figure within 3 years in each location, we should be able to grow at least 80% local. So that we feel is a doable goal that's realistic.
Mm-hmm. I don't like to mix politics with business, but have you gotten any political support from people understanding? I mean, you're starting to hear trickles of it on the news now, about food insecurity, water insecurity, just the whole system kind of coming to a screeching halt here at some point in the near future, not out future. So do you have any political support behind this project?
We have some wonderful connections with people that are very connected. My preference has been to remain below the radar until we're really strong, and we're getting there. So I haven't advocated for that. I haven't reached out to try to build those connections politically at all. And they're happening anyway, because it must be time. So some of our team and our stakeholders are very well connected. And so we're doing a very, I think, a very practical, mature, conscious approach to that world. And basically saying, when we're ready, we're happy to connect. We're not going to be grabby and, oh, come early because we need your money or any of that stuff. We're just being really picky. The word that we use a lot is alignment. Alignment is a natural affinity that sometimes is there. And when it's not there, we don't mind saying no. I said no to $100 million at the end of 2021 to a really nice person who was not, he wasn't offensive in any way. It's just, he wanted us to go off mission. So we're not doing that.
Good. What kind of off mission was he looking at? No.
Well, he really wanted, it came down to organics at the end. I realized we were getting along so well and he wasn't asking for so much. And at the end, I realized we hadn't talked about organics yet. And it was a 2-hour phone call. It was a long phone call. And he's a very large international business person. And so I said, John, how do you feel about organics? Because that's at the heart of our mission. And he said, oh, you don't need organics. You can wash all that poison off, no problem. And I went, well, okay, I'm going to have to get back to you because I'm not sure how we can say yes at this point to your offer. So I did get back to him with a really generous offer, and then he promptly got sick. So I don't think he's ready to hear that he could actually work with us and not have his own thing, his own belief system be unchallenged. So that happens sometimes. People get their beliefs challenged and they react.
Yeah. Well, I think that right now the belief, like with the facts that you bring forward and that we know to be true, especially with the ages of the farmers and also with the reality of the climate injustice that's happening right now, there's a need to be very proactive and get something, all of these initiatives off the ground. And I'd like to, like, to me, like the heart of this is just like getting to the core, like how can we motivate and move this forwards, because this is a global concern. I mean, if we could send this broccoli to the Philippines or this broccoli to Syria right now, or poi or whatever it is, until this gets going, right? Even if you have just 1 or 2 of these centers, you can be, I mean, there's where grant money comes in, or, how are we going to feed these 8 billion people? And the amount of food that continue to grow, and the amount of soil that where they say there's less than 60 years of arable farmable soil left. So let's get into regenerative farming. And are you seeing, like this guy was resisting to the idea of organic? Were you able to get to the core of why it's not even so much organic? It's this regeneration concept. So I'd like to really.
Well, there are people who really get it. And so as an example, the nation of Thailand gets it. So their government, the king of Thailand, and their ministries that run their ag for the whole country, they get it. And they've hired the Carbon Underground, which is started by a couple of friends of mine years ago, real experts in all this. They hired the Carbon Underground to train 35 million Thai farmers to grow regenerative food. Can you imagine that? They set aside $800 million to do that education, training, support work, and they've already started doing it. So that's huge. And A year and a
That's
half,
beautiful.
almost 2 years ago was the last time I talked to my friends about this and where it's at. And when they went to the first meeting with the Thai government, with the king and the ag minister and the head of the military, because it's a crisis right now because their soil's collapsing. And when they went to those meetings, they brought jars of my food. And at the end of the meetings, the king goes, well, this is great, you guys, we love this, but what are we going to do with the seconds and all the extra food we're going to grow? And he pulled out my jars and he said, we're going to do this with it. We have a partner that's going to do this with it. And he's like, tell that guy to get ready. So we have been in communication with their ag minister about when we're ready. They've got locations set up for us to start our first few centers there. So there's a lot of good news right now, and regeneration is happening. People are becoming aware of it, not just the 1.5 billion that signed the Safe Soil letter, but some governments and some businesses. But it's exciting. I guess the thing I want people to understand, if they don't already, it's a very exciting time. Zach Bush is a great spokesperson for this. And if you've never had him on your show, I'd love to see him on your show. He's so brilliant and passionate, and he really gets the heart of life in this microbiome. And he says that every time we breathe in, there are 10 to the 30th power of viruses coming into our body and leaving it's like we're part of this constant, beyond our ability to comprehend or really describe how abundant it is. We're in this constant, with every breath, that's like all the time, constant exchange of life. And what is that life? It's not just in our gut. 3 million microorganisms per square centimeter of our intestinal wall. How do you fit 3 million organisms in a space that big on your intestinal wall? I mean, it's just mind-boggling, the abundance, right? And the diversity. So the purpose of that life is biodiversity, ever expanding biodiversity, ever expanding resiliency. That's how nature works, right? It's always working on resiliency and biodiversity and enduring and growing and evolving and being better and vitality and what's working and what's not working. So we're part of that. We actually are. And I believe people like us who get these ideas and these inspirations and work on them, and the people that come help us do it, we're all being, I think it was Michael Pollan, he said, who's hosting whom? You have that many bacteria in your body, and compared to a vast minority of cells, 10 to 1, who's hosting whom? Who's giving you the idea to want to eat that apple? Is it your own whatever, or is it the microbiome saying, hey, dude, go eat the apple. You need that pectin or whatever you need from that apple. So, are we being guided, some of us, to come together and work on these projects to turn this around? I believe so. And it's a lot of fun to be in partnership with life.
Absolutely. And, I love both of those people. And Zach Bush will be on the show, and I'll make sure you know when he's coming on.
Thanks.
But it's so important, because they don't teach us this in elementary school, in first grade. This is the whole education system is skewed towards destroying life instead of revitalizing it. And these antiquated systems that we're forcing upon our children is criminal. And that's, I love too what Jack Johnson's doing, who's on the island too, the programs that they're doing. Just having you and I having this conversation, and just with the amount of intelligence and information that you have and the solutions that you're bringing forward, I hope that you're able to go out and speak with the right people or more people. And I think, like, even developing and designing a curriculum around this very subject, because this is life, right? This is exactly what we all need to be talking about every day. Where are you getting your microbiome from today? What are you doing to increase the microbiome, the healthy microbiome on the planet? And like everybody who's on this call or listening to the replay, one of the simplest things you can do is look at the behind you. See, David has a plant. You can start growing food in your own home. And you can start having pots of this microbiome rich, organic, loamy, fertile soil in your home, because you are not only sequestering carbon in your home, but you're also, like David was just explaining, you're breathing in and out, like how many thousands of microbes in and out all day. So, with all this electronics and lights and this artificial stuff, what do you think that's doing to the microbiome? I mean, think about it.
Well, it's not helping, but the point isn't, it's, I guess one of the points I like to get across to people is the power of that intelligence and that life is so much stronger than our ability to really wreck it. I mean, we can slow it down, we can damage parts of it here and there, and we're doing that, but it's so much more resilient than we could possibly ever overcome. It really is. And so, and its job is to constantly adapt, right? So a couple, you know, it's important to keep what I call grounded hope alive, not just like airy-fairy anything, but to really understand the power of life is very powerful. And life will always win, and it may adapt and change here and there. And yeah, of course, we don't want to wreck it so bad that we blow up our seat on the planet as a species, but we probably won't do that. We'll probably be fine. And, you know, some of the news is so doom and gloom that, you know, it's not really, I don't think it's really totally accurate. I think we should really give space for the power of life that is active every day. And I mean, just, you know, you see someone with cancer like Tell, and she's able to heal that with food. I mean, there's so many examples. We don't have to look far to see people who have healed from all kinds of things naturally by plugging back into the abundance of life. Most people in the unfortunate version of what's happening right now, they're motivated by fear and a sense of scarcity and a sense of separation. All those things are the opposite of what the truth of life really is. Life is connected, life is abundant, and life is very hopeful because it's so powerful and it's always trying to move in a better direction for all. You know, I always say nature is a complex, multifaceted ecosystem that is designed to benefit all the participants and the whole. And we are part of nature. You know, we act like we're not, as sometimes some of us do, but we are still a part of it. I mean, the worst perpetrators on the planet, they've got a gut, they've got, you know, the microbiome all in their body and all around them, and they've got a heart and a soul. And so, you know, it's like the quote anti-life or the troublemakers that are causing trouble for life, they really can't win because even they're embraced by it. So it's important to remember, like, how can we align our businesses and our lives and our families more to those principles of abundance and thriving wellness and connection and love, you know, that feeling of joy that comes from biting into a really sweet, crisp, ripe apple that's just bursting with everything we need, you know. It's important to just consciously bring ourselves back to that, because the pull from some of the things that are not helping is the other way. And it's up to us, really. And, you know, growing a garden is good. Getting your hands in the dirt is good. You get that contact with the microbiome. How we talk, how we think, how we believe, keep pulling ourselves back into alignment with those principles. It's super important.
Yeah, you love reading my book, Living Like the Future Matters.
There you
I have
go.
a good true copy. Yeah, it speaks to all the values that you're prescribing, but it's getting people to not just read that book or not just listen to Zach Butch. It's actually taking the action in our communities, in our homes, the little things that we can do each and every day to be. We are nature. We are built out of all the elements of nature. That why we look at a horse or we look at a wolf and they're nature and we're not. No, we are all nature. And the thing is that Mother Earth, like what you were saying, is she is so powerful. And these microorganisms that were here way before human species, way before dinosaurs, way before anything, these microbes are what created the soil and the earth and made it available for us to live there. I mean, the intelligence there is huge. But one thing that I do want to make sure that people leave or feel like, well, there is a sense of really, I don't want to say, well, fear, urgency, but taking those steps now, because Mother Nature there's lots of species every day that are going extinct. And we don't want to be the sixth extinction. So, and we're not totally responsible for everything. I don't like to point fingers and say, oh, it's just all humans. But other thing that I love that you said, David, that was so great is it's like Mother Nature. I mean, all this 1% who think they are controlling all of us and all of these systems and cycles, and they're, he holds the water, owns the world. She who holds the waters is the Pachamama, and she will spit out whatever she can't digest. And if her microbiome is tired and not working with that particular species, we're one of them, right? So like one of the things that I just really want to tie this whole conversation into is the idea of and getting back to your mission and getting back to this billionaire who was going to give you $100 million who kind of fell off the wagon because he got sick. I wonder if there's a way in the back door to show him how he can get healthy by looking at reconsidering the organic, the regenerative soil, making that tie into that connection, that's what's going to not just heal him, but his soul after it leaves, because he's left a legacy behind. Because you can do a lot with $100 million. And he can get healthy eating the broccoli and the poi, these things. But if he doesn't understand that the way that food is grown is responsible for the soil health, which, like getting back to Zach Bush, is responsible for really everything that we eat, everything that we wear, the roofs over our head, the roofing material, everything comes from the earth, the wood that builds our homes, the fibers that we wear on our body. Even like we've talked about in the past on other shows, like oil fields, they're farming for oil. Anytime you dig up, dead carcasses to try and, there's karma involved in this whole fossil fuel cycle. Not that we can 100% get away from it now, but this idea of this regenerative mindset, this idea of like, how are I'm sure you've thought this through, but you're putting these centers together, you call them centers. How will you fuel them? How much energy does it take? How much water does it take? And to me, it just makes total sense, a way to transport food because of perishability. It makes so much sense that people can eat just a teaspoon of something and get almost a day's worth of nutrients, right? There's so much a point of efficiency. But what to make this product and to do this, can you just give us a little idea about this dehydration process and the nutrient quality of the food? And obviously you're looking at only buying and purchasing, which I honor you for in your mission, regeneratively farmed foods. So what does that look like in the whole process, the whole value chain, this whole circular economy?
So thanks, Donna. So a couple of things. You talked about the larger ecosystem picture around our centers. That's important. We've been working on that. So at this point, we have project partners that are doing other technologies besides our food technology that are addressing in an elegant way that's also super regenerative, the whole idea of how do you grow more soil that's living soil faster. So we have partners that can do that, and maybe on another call we can look at the whole campus idea, because we're starting a campus in Montana right now. We'll do another one there. Our work in Hawaii will definitely be a full soil, food, and energy campus. Every time we land these dryers, we're also going to be surrounding ourselves with biomass to energy and regenerative soil technologies, and also renewable energy technologies that don't need batteries to store large amounts of power. So we can do multiple gigawatts of renewable energy with no batteries and no grid tie-in at all. So those technologies all exist. Over the years, we built good relationships with those technologies and those people. So we're all feel really good about working together. So the whole, and recently we just came across a Hawaii-based company that's connected to an international scientific group that solved the idea of how to make concrete regenerative. Imagine that. So they've done it. Yeah. So I'll plug them a little bit just because it's easy and they're exciting. It's YUMMET, YUMMET.org. It's a nonprofit based on the south side of the Big Island, and they've solved concrete. So concrete is now, through their process, less expensive, much, much stronger, completely non-toxic, which is a big deal, and carbon negative, which they suck in a lot of CO2 to make it.
I want to know that. I'll make sure you got that. So put that in the chat. I want to contact them. That's great.
Yeah. So building out of regenerative concrete, generating soil out of green waste and making energy while you're doing it, and being able to store that energy off grid with no batteries. So you can power a whole community, not just our project, but our whole community with sovereign energy. So all those things are important. You asked real quick, a couple of details about our technology to dry food, which to me, every aspect of this has to be mission driven, and it has to be the best, because if it's not, it won't accomplish the mission. So I was grateful and honored and kind of blown away to see how we've been led to find this drying technology, and how we've been led to figure out how to use it in ways that most people don't know how to use it to dry more food. So the simple version is, when you freeze dry food, you drop it down to between -52 and -112 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 hours. That's insanely, I mean, none of us can get through that. We couldn't, I don't know if we have something that we could put on or get ourselves in where we could handle that kind of temperature for 12 hours. So it's completely unnatural, but it works, and it maintains, over 90% of the nutrients in food. It just doesn't look or taste very good. So that's important. It also dries to about 5% moisture, freeze drying. And that's dry, but it's not nearly as dry as what we do. Our technology takes about 5 minutes, and it's very low temperature. It's not raw. So there is in some foods, there is some small loss of enzymes. So it's not 100% nutrient rich, but it's more than freeze dried, and it's up in the 90%, higher 90% range. Of what that food was before we dried it. But to accomplish that, to dry a food in minutes with a very low temperature and no atmospheric pressurized anything, the only way you can do it, if you think it through, we puree the food and we turn it into a liquid that's about as thick as a piece of paper. So now if you imagine a puree that's as thin as a piece of paper, like sitting on it. Way thinner, way thinner, 10 times thinner than a fruit leather. Fruit leather is about a 16th to an eighth of an inch thick, and our purees are much, much thinner than that. Literally a piece of paper, right? A thin piece of paper. So you put that on a conveyor belt, and there's hot water underneath the conveyor belt generating heat up into the puree. And in about 5 minutes, because it's so thin, all 98% of the water goes out naturally. So it's very simple. It's not easy to work with, but it's very simple how it works. And so our drying process goes down to around 2% or less. So we're at least twice as dry. In some cases, some foods we dry are below 1% moisture. The cool thing about having a food that dry is there's almost no water activity. And so the pathogens that help spoil food need water activity to live. So our food's very safe because the pathogens can't live in it. And so like this food I'm showing you here, this is actually 18, almost 19-year-old poi. And it's fine. Every once in a while I take a pinch of it to check it, and it's perfect. Our food lasts a long time if you keep it sealed up in good shape. So anyway, it's a simple technology. The dryers have been around since 1989, and nobody's done this with it yet. They dry paint, chemicals, nutraceuticals, algae, and food coloring. And occasionally they dry some foods. A lot of times they feel they need to cook it first because they can't get that puree thin enough and smooth enough without either cooking the food or using additives or carriers. So we had to pioneer ways to puree this food so that we don't cook it, we don't put additives in it, and it works. So that's been cool, but it's great. I mean, this is beets. I mean, these are gorgeous. beets, you know, and they're years old already, and they're going to last for a whole lot more years.
How many
No,
beets are in that jar? Like that's a quart?
This is about 2.5 ounces, it's very dry, maybe 3 ounces of beet crystals. And I think the beets I think this batch was about 8-to-1, the food ratio. So that means that there'd be about 1.5 pounds of beets in this jar. So it weighs hardly anything. So it's very, very condensed and very concentrated in a good way, very intensified, I guess you could say. So yeah, and it keeps for a long time. So the flavors there, the fragrance, the color, the versatility, you know, like we said, most people use powders in their smoothie and that's it. You can cook with our foods. You can make instant soups out of them. You can garnish anything with them. You can make them back into puddings, salsas, salads, dressings. We stir fry with it. We do all kinds of stuff with it. We make desserts with it. You can bake with it.
I noticed on your website you had a lot of really interesting, good recipes. So how much like cost? Let's talk economics, and then I know our time's almost up here. This is just I want to know more, so we definitely have to continue this. Like what the cost ratio? Like if you were using a fresh beet versus the dehydrated beets, and you're making borscht per se.
So we sell our food right now in a 100-gram bag. It's a double bag to keep the moisture out. It's important to keep the moisture out. And so that it depends on the food because the ratio is all over the place, right? So we sell that bag for $18. And some of our foods, the ratios are a lot closer. Like we dry chickpea miso. So the same organic chickpea miso you can buy in the store, one of the main old organic miso brands, we buy their miso in big buckets, and then we thin it down and puree it and dry it, and it turns into these gorgeous crystals. That ratio is pretty good. You can make a cup of miso soup for about a little over $1, which is nice. Worth of miso, right? You add a little bit of water. So some of the ratios are not as close, so you don't get as much out of each package. But generally speaking, if you were to buy the food fresh, you're paying about somewhere between 10 to 20% of the cost to dry it and have it available for years and have it be at a quality that you're going to want to use it. So you are paying something over fresh. You know, we don't want to grind the farmers. So when we start, like on Maui, we're not going to grind it. I can buy bananas for 80 cents a pound from Ecuador. They've already been washed, peeled, cut up into little slices and frozen, put in a bag and sent to me that way. So I don't have to do any work to the bananas. I open the bag, I pour it in the puree line, and we're on our way. I'm happy to pay a lot more, you know, over 30-40% more than that for local organic bananas in Hawaii, because that's our mission and our economic model works. So yeah, so it's a good food value for people if they want that kind of food, if they want food that is shelf friendly for years, totally versatile, delicious, really good for you, and it's easy and fun to use. You know, kids that have a hard time eating vegetables, they'll eat green macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, that's so fun. But you know, really, when you think about the people going to the farmer's market or a restaurant, even how much food waste ends up in the compost or the garbage because you don't get to it in time. So really, when I think the cost analysis would probably be that you're actually saving money by not having any waste because you're not dealing with, and also your time as a consumer, you're not having to clean it, you're not having to store it in refrigeration, you can have a smaller refrigerator. And also, one of the things that I think that is such a hugely important thing to leave our listeners with is this food insecurity is a real issue. And I know, like, I've even seen it at Costco, they sell these buckets, you know, of survival food. It really makes sense. I know I have a lot of these dried powders around, and I like somebody was saying, you know, you always have to have sardines and beans, you know, when the power goes out. But you can't live on sardines and beans if you don't have greens, right? If you can have your greens in there and all these different colors of the rainbow. So I'm very excited to try some of your products. So we're going to make sure, like in the links and in the replays and everything, we're going to have the information, and Tel's putting it in the chat too. She's put it in a couple times to make sure we have that there. And I also want to, everybody who's listening to make sure you listen to, we'll put this in there too, Rita Jean Fleming's talk on regenerative health and regenerative agriculture. And she works with the Purium products in Montana, and she's working with the regenerative ag program on the White Buffalo Ranch. And I don't know, is that, maybe you know those people in Montana? White Buffalo? Yes, you might even know Rita. I mean, they're really on the, it's like this partnership collaboration. You might even be working with them. And another episode that I would really encourage you all to listen to is Natasha Campbell's episode, where she really dives into gut microbiome health and regenerative soil. And Natasha Campbell is the founder of the GAPS diet. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's an incredible resource over in Europe for you. And really on the forefront, as is Sally Fallon too, with the working on the regenerative ag movement. And so there's lots of great back episodes for everybody who wants to listen. We'll make sure we include them all in the chat. And David, I just want to thank you like so much for coming on the show. We're also going to put in the link in the chat to the recent blog I wrote, which was a takeoff on a regenerative blog I wrote years ago. So you'll get both of those when you read the blog. But it's all about the connection of the gut and the plant and the soil microbiome, which David so beautifully shared with us and gave us so much insight into what things we can do, and why being an eco-entrepreneur in this day and age is more important than ever, and to incorporate nature into everything that we do.
You know, thanks, Donna. Everybody can go to the farmer's market and walk up to that farmer that maybe has a lot of food left. They haven't sold it all yet. It's getting toward the end of the market, and you can walk up to that farmer and you can buy something from them, and you can look them right in the eye and you can say, thank you for farming. Thank you for feeding us and growing our food. I mean, regenerative farming really needs to be elevated and exalted as one of the most important vocations on earth, because that is the answer for our wellness crisis, our whatever people think is going on with the climate crisis, a lot of other instabilities, and hunger. I mean, it's all there, and allowing ourselves to know that, and to know it can be that effective and that basic, that change. And then just finding our own ways. I mean, you know, it's natural too. You don't see health food wrappers on the side of the road as litter, because people who are willing to buy food that nourishes their body, they feel a natural connection to life, and it doesn't occur to them to throw the wrapper out the window. It just wouldn't occur to us to do that. So there is a lot going on that's helpful. That's below the level of conscious thinking and strategizing. It's just our nature to want to be connected and be abundant and be healthy and to make things work out. So happy to be a part of that. Grateful to be on your show. Good to meet you guys. And please let us know how we can help some more in the future.
Oh, you just got to keep doing what you're doing, David. And also, I don't know if you know this, we'll make sure you get the link right now. Heart and Soul has just this week, and you can listen to the replay, has Shiva Danda on there from India, and a whole bunch of soil experts. There's, I think, 20 or so soil people from Heart and Soil magazine. And I'm sure I'll make an introduction with you to Natalie, who started the Heart and Soil magazine, because you would be a great guest on her next summit, and also, you know, in the magazine for her to interview you, because this is terrific. And both David and I are part of Global Food Collaborative, which is Robin Richardson, who I've known for 30 something years. David's known for a really long time. She has, that's another link we can give you all. Her show was great. We had Robin on the show. She was one of my first guests. So yeah, there's lots here. And if you guys want to be healthy and you want to be secure in your food system, I urge you all to check out David's One Organic website. It's beautiful. Your website is beautiful and it's super informative and it's not in your face and it's not too high techy and it's just like user friendly. And try products, try them. And
we've got a lot of recipes. We put the recipes right up under the mission because that was the first question people had. So we've got 124 gorgeous recipes, kid-friendly, convenient, fun, really great ways to make food, soups, salads, desserts, salsas, everything you can imagine. So have fun with your food, get healthy, and thanks for being part of the solution, everybody.
I love you, David. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us today on A Dose of Positivity. And I want to just let you all know that next week we have another incredible guest coming on. Her name is Elaine Starling, and she's going to be talking about the abundance journey, which we talked a little bit about, but there's nothing more abundant than we need right now. It's rich loamy soil. And again, David, thank you so much for your commitment, your dedication, sharing your brilliance and your will and your wisdom with all of us here today. And for everybody who's tuned into A Dose of Positivity, we thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you guys.
And aloha.